I'm going to rank these 9 website design trends that are taking the internet by storm in 2024. And I'm going to let you know which ones I think are too hot to use for real projects and client work, which ones are the real keepers, which ones are the sleepers, and which ones need to go straight to the trash. And believe me, there's a couple of them that definitely need to go to the trash. I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to let you know exactly what I think. And we're going to start out with maximalism. Maximalism is basically everything big text, big buttons, big typography, big user interface elements, up close, personal, think like way too in your face. And I think the reason why that this is happening is because we have large screens now, and it's a bit of a stray or maybe a bounce back from all the small, clean, minimalist. We want big, large, loud, expressive, and I think it's a lot of fun. So here's a great example. We got one here. We got straight in your face, real close up. You could see the pores on this gentleman's face, and you can't even read more than one line at a time, at least in these big headings. We got impactful design is the design that works. And so you can see here, it's all about big elements, big text, big images, big typography. And what this really does, why I think this works, is because it really makes you focus on what you're reading. You know, we have so much drawing our attention all over the place, distracting us, that it's forcing us to just look at what is there. And this means, as the designer, as the creator, as the agency owner, using this technique means you need to make what you say mean something. It needs to matter. It can't be fluff. You can't hide behind a wall of text or distractions. It's just one line at a time, big text, big buttons. And we see this on a number of sites. Here's another example here. Large, full screen, in your face. One more example here. Again, really large imagery, close-ups. So if I were to rank this one, I'm going to put it as a keeper. Why? Because this is something that you can use in your client work. You can use it on your portfolio sites, your agency sites, your client sites. This is something that is actually practical and we can use. I think it's something that we're going to see more of in 2024, and it's something that is going to stick around. Now, maybe the large, obnoxious, oversized stuff might scale back a little bit. I think we're kind of bouncing real far into the super maximalist vibe, but I think this is something that we're going to see more and more of. And I think it's something that is very welcome change in the design space and the website design space. So this one is a keeper. Next. So next up, we got something called heritage revivalism, or the heritage revival, or heritage maximalism, or Baroque style. And basically what it is if the company or the business or the website has a long history, it kind of goes back to its roots. Or if it doesn't have a long history, it makes it seem as though it's real vintage. Or maybe they have a logo mark or a brand style that they used to have when the company was established in 1869 or something, and it's really embracing that. Here are a couple examples. We've got a website here that's showing off the products. And so these products are actually perfumes and colognes and oils and soaps and scented products. But you can see the designs are this like kind of Baroque style, kind of old heritage, traditional style, hand-drawn pieces. These are things that you feel like you'd find in an old antique shop. You know, if it had dust on it and you pulled it out of an antique shop, or like your great-grandmother's attic or something like that, and you'd be like, wow, this is what stuff looked like in 1878 or something. And that's what they're going for here. Another example would be this Word on Fire site. And it's really meant to show, one, it's really showing this art, this really high quality art and tradition, but it's also modern. You know, it's a modern site with a good user experience, but it's showing off the art. It's kind of old fashioned and traditional. It's got a rich history, and it's really kind of showing that in its art. This is something that's going to really show up in e-commerce, in fashion, and possibly even in other brands like consumer packaged goods. I think this could work really well for these scenarios. It won't work for everything. You know, if you got a software company, you're probably not going to show off that true heritage of your software company you started last year. It doesn't match. And certain client projects, it might not really work. And I think that this is a little bit more niche of an application. So for that reason, though I really like this heritage revivalism, I think that this is something that, unless it's a specific client, it's going to be too hot to use in practical projects. It's more niche. All right, next we got this Bentobox UI, Bento Grid, Bentobox Grid. Basically, in 2023, we started to see this trend really start to ramp up. And I was surprised when people started talking about it as a new trend, as if it was something new and novel, when all it is just the mosaic grid. Now, trends are something that don't necessarily mean it's new. So this is not new at all. It's just a reskinned, repackaged, reimagined, or renamed old technique. So we call it Bentobox grid. And basically it looks like this. It's just where we've got kind of just like a bento box on the web. And you can see in some cases, these little compartments, these little pieces show up and they're all the same. Other times they have different sizes and they all fit the package. So if we look at the screen as like one element, we've got a really long, element here. We've got a half-sized element that's twice in its height. We have a half-sized element that's half the height, and we have one that's taken up like a third of the screen size. And you see that a lot. In this example, Apple does it a lot. You can see it on certain elements on their iPhone site. You could see it here. There's a bit of a bento box vibe, a real vanilla version of it, let's call it. But they use it. They use it a lot in a lot of their branding and a lot of their packaging and their user interface elements. And because it's neat, it's tidy, it's organized, it looks great. Procreate is another site here that uses it pretty heavily. You could see it. Perfect example of the bento box UI. Typically, it's very colorful. It's rounded corners. We've got a little bit of text in the user interface, and the whole thing is a clickable element. That's typically the scenario of how the bento box style works. I think it's a real keeper. It's something that I think you can use on actual projects, client projects, your portfolios. It's something that works. It's tried and true. It's been around for 10 plus years. We just call it Bento Grid now. All right, moving on. We've got the 80s. So the 80s is coming back. It seems that millennials got a real hankering for the 80s vibes. The internet didn't exist in the 80s. But if it did, it would probably look something like what you're about to see. And basically all it is it's either making your user interface and your designs feel like it's the 80s, it's a throwback, or it's using branding and packaging. So this 88 Brewing, this is the local brewing company, and they really go for the 88. They're called 88. They're literally making their branding about 1988. And so they're trying to make their gear, their swag, their beer, their packaging, 80s vibes. They're just finding like classic 80s tropes and colors and what we feel is the 80s, and it makes it into a site. Here's a good example. We got vacation.inc. So this one's really kind of going back to like old kind of Florida, Miami Vice, Baywatch, like your mom and dad on vacation before they had kids sort of thing. And I think it's fun. I think it's really fun. And it's a neat take on design, but I think it's something that's going to age poorly maybe as people move further away from it. I don't think they'll look at the 80s and go, wow, I really, really love it. I know we're hearing a lot of 80s like kind of music and new music that sounds like the 80s because people are fascinated by it. But I think it's just going to kind of pass. It's going to be quite literally a trend that dips down and we'll see less of. And so for that reason, though I think it's neat, I think it's actually a sleeper. You can't use it for client projects unless it's specifically in the brand details. It's not an actual keeper that we're going to see going through, and it's not too hot. And I won't dump it because I like it. I think it's kind of neat. Moving on. All right, let's get into the Gen Z ethos here. Gen Z seems to be fascinated by like Y2K or like retro. They like retro, but they think retro is like, 2000s. You could tell the generation by what they think retro is. And if you ask your parents what retro is like a long time ago, maybe like 80 years ago. Retro to millennials would probably be 80s, 90s. What Gen Z is really kind of doing here is they're really kind of going back to the dial-up design. They think 90s is real old-fashioned, real old school. And they're really kind of going to that early internet, like the genesis of the internet. So we're going to call this style dial-up design. I remember dial-up. I remember the experience. Gen Z doesn't remember it. But this is what I find fascinating, is that you get to see Gen Z's take on dial-up internet, dial-up design, dial-up style, even though they didn't experience it. So it's like you get to see their interpretation of it. And it's cool because it's a little augmented, it's a little bit elevated, because the reality of it was like pretty bad. But it's kind of cool to see like someone who's like, whoa, that seems so like analog and retro, man. Here's my take on it. Here's my artistic take. So I threw this one in here because it's got the dial-up vibe. It's got the old Microsoft user interface style here. Like it's literally using this old pixelated kind of like old-fashioned user interface that was very much a dial-up vibe. Now this brand, the Pit Viper brand with the glasses, like the Macho Man Randy Savage, hey brother, yeah, that guy, that's more 80s, you know, maybe early 90s. Here's another one. It's going for that like magazine or the zine or the zine, whatever they call it, you know, like kind of old-fashioned, like not old-fashioned, but like dial-up vibe, kind of like late 90s, you know, magazine style websites. Here's another one, kind of more throwbacks. This looks like a kind of arcade game style. It's not too hot for design for your clients. It's not practical for clients. It's not a sleeper. I'm actually going to say this is like a bit of a dump. Whoopsies. Just what it is. I gotta say it. All right, so this next one is called locomotive scrolling or loco scrolling. I'm gonna call it loco scrolling because it's crazy scrolling, and I think it's a crazy bad idea. I hate it. You already know what I'm gonna rank this one, folks, but it is the worst. It's called scroll jacking, scroll hijacking, locomotive scrolling, loco scrolling, stupid scrolling. Only dumbos would do this. Now, if you do this, I don't think you're a dumbo. I just think the choice that you made is unwise. Not only give my opinion on this, but I think that there's some sort of science behind this. There's some sort of evidence or proof that this is bad. You're gonna have to Google it for actual evidence and proof. I'm not gonna provide that for you. I'm just gonna give you my opinion masked as evidence. Okay, this is what it is. When you scroll, you need to go to some of these sites. You could just type in scroll hijacking. You know, you can visit some of these sites, but when you scroll, it takes over your scroll wheel, your scroll mouse, your trackpad, whatever it is. And it typically has like an ease in, ease out kind of like animation to it or whatever. You scroll and it's not actual scrolling. Like if you're on a normal website and you scroll, it just goes at the pace that you set on your machine, on your mechanical keyboard or trackpad. You could set that user interface, you know, user experience on your computer. Here's how fast I want the trackpad to go. Here's how fast I want the scroll to go. Why? Because that's a personal preference, just like font sizes or, you know, like color blindness, or if you want to have assisted, you know, browsing and whatnot. The scrolling is something very personal to a person's mechanics, not to mention your visual experience. If you're scrolling and your website is just wanking around everywhere, and I can't control it. I scroll down and it's like just doing its own thing. Like this one is another one. I scroll here and I can't even control it because now I'm going left and I'm right. I'm going up and down. I'm going fast. I'm going slow. You know, your text is wobbling and I can't stop it. I don't know. Am I going left? Am I going right? But now I'm going back. I'm moving my screen around. I hate it. I hate it. It's actually so bad that I think that it doesn't even belong in the dump. It's below that. That's how bad it is. Don't scroll jack. Don't do it. Now that brings us to our next one, which is very related. It's called scroll looping. It's another ridiculous hijacking of your scroll experience. And I think it's because of TikTok and, you know, this doom scrolling and people just being used to scrolling now, where it never ends. There's no bottom of the site because it perpetually loads, you know, whether you're using Ajax or you're using like a lazy loader, or you're using a website tool that allows you just to keep loading information at the bottom of the site without ever getting to the bottom. It's a way to keep you hooked on scrolling or to make you crazy and lose your mind. It'll drive you mad. So this is a site, which I think the design is incredible, by the way. It's really cool. The overlay, the elements, you hover over a menu item and it's overlaying videos and images and multimedia and graphics. Very cool. Very, very cool. Nice typography. But this, I don't know if you noticed, but I've been scrolling this whole time and it does not end. Because why? It's loading the same window over and over and over again. I never end. And I think that that is absolutely bonkers in a bad way. That is messes with your head. It's disorienting. It's bad user experience. It takes your eye off of what are you doing here? What are you offering? And makes it more about like, wait, when is this? I'm not looking. I don't even know what this is about. I don't know what the site is about. I've looked at it about 15 times and I have no idea what it's about, and I will never know because I never get to the end of it. So that one to me is a hard no. It's a hard dump. I'm not going to put it in the scroll jacking because you already get my opinion on that. So that's what I have to say about that. Now, moving on, we're actually going to move to the AI generated experience, the AI art. We all know AI. We all know its vibe. We all know what's going on. AI is taking over the world. Or taking over something, I don't know. And it's everywhere. We start to see AI art, AI generated people, AI voices, AI text, AI content. AI is in everything. And I think in many ways that's really cool, really awesome. I talk a lot about it on the channel, but in other ways, you know, it's overdone. It's oversaturated. There's a lot of stuff. You're going to see a lot of it. But while I think that it's really cool and really helpful and it could be a real utility into your productivity and to your creation process, you know, and, you know, it creates this unique style. Like this is very much the AI art style. We know that now. We've seen it. And cool. I think it's a lot of fun. What it does is it creates an opportunity for designers to be more heritage, to be more analog, to be more throwback, to be more vintage. And that's why we're seeing it, you know, like to be more hand-drawn, to have a more physical experience, more analog experience. I don't know why I'm doing that, but that's the physical analog experience motion. It's the opposite of AI. You see my hands? Because if I was AI right now, I'd have like 3 extra fingers and an arm coming out of my back pocket. It's gotten better, to be honest. But this is, you know, AI. We're going to see it in content, in art, in text, and even OpenAI's website, which is a really cool design, by the way. They have a really cool branding. We're going to start seeing people embracing this and using this style more. And I think that that's fine because in some sense, like we got to embrace it and we got to figure out how to incorporate it, maintain our humanity and our authenticity while bringing the robots on board. So this one is going to be less of a trend that is just going to go up and down. I think it's going to be more and more embraced, and we're going to refine it as we go. So in terms of the AI, I think we're going to see it start to incorporate more in a realistic way. And so I'm actually going to rate the AI art, the AI vibe as a keeper because I think it's going to work. I think it's something that we can use. And it's also going to create a lot of opportunities for zagging. So when you zig, when they zig, you zag. You know, your competitors zig, you zag. If someone's really going heavy on the AI, why don't you go heavy on the handwritten? You know, it creates opportunities. I think that's really cool. It creates more opportunities for human value. Now, finally, we got one more. This is a hot trend that we saw in the 2023 and is very much coming through into 2024. I think this one's sticking. We're so used to it. It's built into everything. It's dark mode, light mode. It's the toggle where you want to toggle between dark mode and light mode. Right now, we see websites actually you can manually toggle, and that's cool. I think it's a neat little trick. I think what's going to happen is we're going to have browsers like your Operas and your Safaris and your Chromes and Firefoxes and whatnots have it so that it will change the website for you. This is my prediction, is that it's going to change it for you. It's going to have some sort of thing in the background that says, hey, what's your system settings? Oh, you're dark mode because you're at night, or you manually override that setting and you like dark mode. It's going to put a request to the site and say, make it dark mode if you have a dark mode, or it will attempt to do one for you. That's my thought. And I think as designers, as web designers, we need to incorporate a dark mode. You know, here's my community right here. We actually do have a light mode and a dark mode. You can toggle, but it's going to make it so that it's going to base it off of the system settings. So on my Mac, on my user interface, it asks me, do you want the user interface to be skinned as light mode or dark mode, or use the system UI? And I just say use system UI. So if I'm here and it's at night, I have a darker user interface. All the skin of the user interface is darker. And that's good because it's easier on the eyes. Whereas in the middle of the day, I'm fine with bright. The sun's out, you know, it's bright and we're good. Bright mode, light mode. So this is a trend that I think is actually establishing itself firmly in the design culture in the what we expect. And I think it's something that's only going to become more and more real. So I'm going to say that's a keeper. Here it is right here from hot. What's a keeper? What's a sleeper? And what's a dump? And what's even worse than that? We got heritage revivalism. It's hot, 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 all the way down to scroll hijacking as worse than a dumpster fire. Those are my thoughts. What do you think? What trends did I miss? What trends do you think are going to be keeping? Which one are we going to be dumping? I'm curious to know what you think. Also, as we go through 2024, I'm curious to see which of these actually show its true colors. Are we going to be sticking with some of these? Does something new pop up? Curious to know your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments. We'll see you in the next video.